Okay, Tap Out 64 here. I've been asked to better explain logs and structure on the bottom. In particular, like a log, how do you tell if it's laying on the bottom or if it's a vertical structure like a standing tree? Got some examples on this video. Don't have any fish on this video, but some interesting structure to look at. So we'll scroll along here, and the first thing we see is a group of logs. This is the second place on the lake I've seen this. Don't know how they got there. Kind of odd, but you can see there's quite a few of them. What we're going to be looking at is the shadows. The shadows are pretty much what tells you how far an item is from the bottom. And on these logs, I really don't see shadows. I see a slight one, maybe because this is a log that's on top of other logs. But basically, this tells me that the logs are on the bottom of the lake. And this is Western Branch. I'm towards the north end. I'm working towards the bridge. There's an area that's got two trees sticking out of the water, and I'm working towards that area, but I'm probably a half mile from there. So anyways, moving along. Here we go. This is kind of interesting here. This here looks like a very long log. I'm starting to pick up a bit of a shadow on the right. It could possibly be a drop-off, but it doesn't look like a drop-off. It looks like a very long log, and I'm picking up a slight shadow, more so at this end. So it's pretty close to the bottom, and this end might be slightly elevated. We have a drop-off over here. You can see it's darker. The water I'm in is probably 18-20 feet deep. Now what we have here is a very long shadow, and I don't see anything next to it, but what I do see is a stump right here. So most likely what this is a vertical structure, probably a tree that's it doesn't stick beyond the surface of the water. So I'm going to guess it's maybe 10 feet tall, and there you got its shadow coming from it. Kind of interesting. Maybe it's 15 feet tall, but it definitely doesn't stick above the water. So it's the first time I've ever seen this vertical structure here. So when we move along here, we start picking up some SAV for submerged aquatic vegetation. I see quite a bit of it on this lake, even as deep as 20 feet of water. We're going to pick up some more here. I'll speed it up a little bit. This is shore along my left side. I'm getting kind of close to the shoreline. There's going to be... here we go. Here's some more SAV, quite a bit right here. These are big clumps of vegetation on the bottom of the lake in about 20 feet of water. We've got a shallow point sticking out over to the right and a little bit of a drop off over here. Moving on, you can still see this shallow point. There's a tree right here. Picked up a few yellow perch in the summertime off this shallow point. I think I made a slight turn here. It's getting a little blurry over here. Now, right here we've got a tree, and the shadow's kind of irregular, which tells me what I've probably got is branches off of this tree. It's not just a straight log, it actually has some branches. And it's probably sticking up a little bit off the bottom. This irregular shadow makes it more of a challenge to understand what you're looking at, but it's definitely a tree. Interesting, now we've got a couple logs here, and on the bottom of this log on the right, the shadow's not nearly as wide as it is on the north end of the log, which tells me that the bottom of the log is most likely on the bottom of the lake, and the top of the log is floating towards the surface. This log to the left of it is shadow's fairly even, so it's probably, you know, right along the bottom, and it's a bigger log. Over here to the right, I have no idea what this is. This is a shallow, weedy point. No idea. Let's move along. The neatest thing about doing this and watching this at home on a big screen is I see things that I did not notice on the lake, and I can go back and explore those areas. When I'm watching it on my 997 unit, I can actually mark waypoints of something that I didn't see on the lake. I can mark that as a waypoint, and next time I go out on the lake, I can go find that point. So anyways, now we're at that point on Western Branch where there's two trees that stick out of the water. Heading towards the bridge, the tree on the left, if I recall properly, does not have any branches. The tree on the right does. It's usually got some big old birds sitting on it. So I've got two trees here, but you notice this long shadow here, and that's because I've basically got two trees in line, and the water here, I want to say you can see there's a drop off. It's probably 20 feet. It's probably 17, 18 feet where the trees are, and the trees stick 20 feet above the water, so we definitely have like I said, the water's about 18 feet, so we got 18 foot of vertical structure creating this long line. And like I said, this is a perfect example because I know as a fact, these are trees because I see them sticking out above the water. So moving along here, I'm seeing maybe some small stumps under here. I'm seeing short shadows with some stumps. Over here, I've got a log to the right. Actually, I've got about 3 logs to the right. Judging by its shadow, they're pretty close to the bottom. Moving up a little further, here we go again. We have a log here that's on the bottom. Now this is interesting because it's got a very wide shadow, and it doesn't really look like a log. It almost makes me wonder if it was an old wall from something, or I have no idea what this is, but it doesn't look like a log. It's a very wide shadow, so it's sticking up a ways from the bottom, especially compared to this log that's on the bottom. Over to the right, we have another log, and here's another good example on this log. The shadow is very thin at the top, and it gets wider and further away from the log towards the bottom, which tells me that this part of the log is probably the heavier end, and it's sitting on the bottom, and this part of the log is floating towards the surface. It's a bit of a science to figure out exactly how far it is from the bottom. I honestly haven't gotten that far yet, figuring that out, but it's obvious that this end is down low, this end is up more towards the surface. And we got clumps of weeds or vegetation or something on the bottom here. Moving along, we're getting close to shore here. Getting towards the end, I'm going to slow it down a little bit. So we're moving along, and I think this is kind of interesting. I want to say I'm in about 20 feet of water again, but this whole area here is like a raised part on the bottom by just a few feet, and then you can see over here it's dropping off again, and these are clumps of weeds, or there's some shadows, so some of them might be stumps and weeds along this area here. Kind of interesting. And right here is what I believe is an old sunken wooden boat. I've gone over this area before, and I had a better shot of it. I took a snapshot, and it looked more clearly like a boat, but kind of interesting. Let's see now. We're going to cruise along. Now we've got a longer, thicker shadow here, so it's probably a stump sticking up a little bit more than the others. I've got a long shadow here, and I've got another shadow here, but I don't see what's creating it. Once again, now we got stumps, I think, because look how long this shadow is. This shadow just stumps along the bottom and clumps, who knows what. For those that know Western Branch, I'm in probably a few hundred yards from the bridge, maybe 500 yards, and there's a submerged island, and that's what I'm going over right now. The water's only about 6 feet deep over this submerged island, and then pretty much that's it. I'm at the north end of Western Branch, so hopefully that was educational, and like I said, I'm still learning this thing. There's a lot to learn, and it's almost like learning another language. You got to learn to interpret shadows, but that's what it's all about, is shadows. So hope you enjoyed it, and I'm hoping to do some recording of the gar this weekend when I go out and show you another interesting video of where the gar are hanging. Talk to you later.